Hey, what's up, guys? It's Billy Hauser. I'm just making a quick video on how to make a phone call. And a more particular way to phrase this would be how to make a cold call. In life, we make a lot of our progress and a lot of our biggest deals on the phone. And a lot of people don't know this. And it's not all about how to build, super effective communication skills face to face, because if you can't manage yourself on the telephone, then you can't get in front of the people that you want to get in front of face to face. Now, if you're in sales, obviously your skills on the telephone are the most important tool in your arsenal. So when I say the topic of this video is how to make a phone call, this will be related to mainly how to make a cold call, and we'll define a cold call in a moment. But it can also be applied to how to make any phone call, how to become powerful on the phone. Let's just leave it like that. A cold call defined. So a cold call is really just calling anyone who is not anticipating your phone call at that moment. And that's going to be a large percentage of the phone calls that occur in life. The majority of people that you call on your phone are not expecting you to call them, right? And that's why it's important to know how, when you are interrupting someone's schedule, how to manage that and how to pique interest so that the person that you're talking to is interested enough to stop what they're doing and to talk to you without saying, I have to go or I have to do this or that. And the main ways that this can be applied is going to be in sales, but it can also be applied with your friends. It can also be applied with dating, and it can be applied in really any area of your life where you feel like you're lacking power on the telephone. But here's how it goes. There's typically 4 steps to success on the telephone. And a lot of people don't know these 4 steps, and that's why I made this video. Step 1 is you have to introduce yourself. Now, in most cases, the introduction is done by caller ID, but if you are in sales or you're making phone calls to people that don't have your number stored in their caller ID, then you will have to introduce yourself in some fashion. Or you'll have to have someone else do the introduction for you before you call, which would be a warm call. So introduction always comes first. And this obviously is different if we're dealing with someone who already has you in their caller ID. Then second, we have the reason for the call. So introduction, then reason, and then third is qualifying, and then 4 is call to action, or the close per se. And I'm going to break down each of these 4 steps, and hopefully you guys can apply them and kind of use them in your life from here forward. So the introduction, what are some of the multiple ways you can introduce yourself when talking or calling someone on the phone? Well, one introduction is who you are and who you're with. So if you're calling business to business, it's respectful to call and to say your name. You don't have to give your last name, but your name, your first name at least, who you are, and then who you're with. Hey, this is Bill with this company. Again, the majority of cases, this is going to be taken care of with caller ID. But let's say you just called a girl that you met last, Friday night in a bar, and she gave you her number, and you haven't called her yet, and she doesn't know who you are, so she picks up the phone, not knowing who you are. Well, you could obviously introduce yourself as your name, but instead of like a company, saying a company that you're from, which would be weird, you would introduce something that would pique their interest. And that's why the introduction is very important, and the stating the reason of the phone call is very important as well, because it will, if you do it in a strategic enough way, it will pique interest in the person on the other line. So let's say you met this girl at a bar and you guys laughed your ass off at something funny that happened. You would say, hey, yeah, hey, what's up? It's Billy. I'm the guy who, tripped that kid that fell into a pile of throw up. You remember me? because that would pique interest, it would get her to laugh, and it would be funny. But obviously, you wouldn't want to say that to a business owner. You would want to pique interest in a different way. So if you're already a celebrity, let's say you're Kanye West making a cold call, or you're someone who has a recognizable name to that person, you would say, "My name's Kanye West." That's it. Or you would say, if you work for a big, well-known company like AT&T or something that everybody knows, you'd say, "My name's Bill with AT&T." Immediately, it's going to pique their interest because they recognize the name. So these are just a few ideas on how you can introduce yourself, and this can also be applied to text, to texting, since it's becoming more and more popular in both business and relationships. You always do want to introduce yourself in the beginning of a relationship, whether it be text or on the phone. Then we move into stating the reason for the call. The reason I'm calling, if you're in business, you actually should say, "The reason I'm calling is," and you state the reason for the call. Now, this is where you really have to pique interest in the reason for the call. And when we get kind of into dating and stuff like that, it's kind of the reverse. You don't want to be too upfront about, "I'm calling because I'm extremely attracted to you, and I think that we could get married in a couple of years, and therefore I wanted to start investing my energy now, so that I could potentially see a return from that investment when we get married." No, you wouldn't want to be that upfront because that's creepy. But some girls are really attracted to like freedom from outcomes. So you could just call to say actually the opposite of that, and that could pique her interest. Say, "Oh, I was just calling because I thought you were probably getting a little lonely without me calling you since you don't have any friends, and I figured I'd do you a service and give you a call." It's kind of like flipping the script, and like you're kind of playing a different role in terms of stating the reason for your call. But when you're dealing with business and you're calling business owners or large businesses, you want to state a huge claim. You want to say, "Oh yeah, I'm just calling because I could potentially grow your business by 380% in the next 6 months, and I just didn't know who to talk to regarding that." That could be, one thing you could use potentially if you're selling some form of advertising. Now, I like to go very specific. So based on the company that I'm calling, I like to talk about a very specific product or service that they sell so that I can immediately jump into the weeds and have them know I'm not giving them a cookie cutter phone call, but one that is more specifically targeted to their business. And this is super important. So stating the reason for the call, the key here is to pique interest. And in order to pique interest in the stating the reason of your call, the only rule here is just make sure you're doing what 90% of other people wouldn't do. And that'll pique interest, whatever that is. But obviously on a business phone call, you're not going to want to do something that could jeopardize your reputation. When you're doing it in dating, you can kind of say whatever you want if you know it's going to pique their interest. So we have the introduction, we have stating the reason for the call. And then we also are, the next one is qualifying, because the only reason for a phone call is to inspire someone to take some form of action. You never ever make a phone call if you don't want someone to do something. Sorry. At some point, you have to qualify them for the action that you want them to take. So let's say you're doing a business call. You have to qualify the person on the other line. "Hey, I have something that could grow your business. I just to be sure, I'm not wasting your time. Are you in a position to grow your business? If they're not, then get off the phone. That's the whole reason you called. If they're not in a position to grow your business and that's all you can do, then there's no reason for you to talk to that person." Now, they might be lying, right? They might be putting, this is where you have to tell whether they are, just getting defensive and want to get off the phone, or if they're being honest. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in. But obviously, it's really important to be emotionally intelligent, because I wouldn't say 90, maybe half the time you ask someone a question on the phone, there's other things going on in their day, and you have to respect that. You just interrupted their day by calling them. They might say no to a question that they really meant yes to just because they want to get off the phone. Same thing goes for, dating or girls or anything. You might ask them, "Are you free anytime this week?" And they might say, and then maybe you need to open them up more and state more reasons, or i.e. pique more interest, and then say, "Well, are you sure you're not free at all?" Not in a creepy way, but it's about going from reason to qualifying. And once you've gathered enough information through qualifying, then you can finally go to the call to action, which is the last part of any phone call. Call to action is either, say you're just building a relationship with someone, maybe like networking in some way. You would say, "Great, yeah. Well, would it be okay if I followed up with a little bit more information in the next 2 days or so, and just like kind of follow up and blah blah." That could be one call to action, just to get them to say yes to that. The other could be, "Hey, I want you to invest $10,000 a month with my business starting right now." That's going to be a harder call to action. You're going to have to do a lot more qualifying and state a lot more reasons why they should do that. If you're trying to, bring a girl on a date, that's a little bit more challenging too. It's largely rapport based. I mean, you have to build so much rapport so that she trusts you, she thinks you're funny, she thinks you're man enough to handle her, and that she thinks that you're important enough for her to, break her schedule and spend time with you. So that is kind of the breakdown of a phone call. I am, at least in sales, very, very skilled on the phone. It's what I attribute a lot of my success to. And everyone at my company would agree on that. I'm very skilled on the phone, and it took a lot of trial and error, and it took a lot of training to be able to break down the processes that make someone successful on the phone. And I hope this is useful for you guys. What I want you to do is, I'm going to be posting this on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. I'm starting to create more content, and I want this to be helpful for you guys. And the only way that I can continue making more relevant content is if you guys comment on these videos, so that I know what piqued your interest the most, and what other topics you'd potentially be interested in for me to make videos on. So I would love for you to leave comments, and I'd love for you to interact with me either on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. Also, make sure you check out Satori Mode, which is my new podcast that I'm doing with my man Frank K. He's a beast, and you definitely need to follow that on the iTunes store. That's Satori, Satori space Mode, Mode, Satori Mode. It's derived from Zen Buddhism. Satori means a sudden realization that results in a loud shout or laughter. And that's what we try and do with that podcast. We try to surprise, we try to give insights, we try to